Body horror is surprisingly really hard to get right. Like any attempt at an artistic pursuit, it normally fails to convey what it wants to, or it's not really trying to convey anything at all. While the human fascination with the physical body and its insides, the ways which it can be grossly and abstractly distorted, is inherently interesting and worthy of discussion in itself, most of the truly great media that tackles the issue does so for a secondary purpose. A film like The Thing isn't about monsters, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream isn't really about yelling, just as any classic zombie movie isn't usually about the zombies. The genre is a vehicle. Something like Tusk, while I consider it to be very effective in its own right, doesn't really specifically utilize the theme of being forcefully turned into a walrus to explore its themes of emotional vulnerability. Sure, you could say him quite literally losing his humanity yet finally crying at the end aligns with what I'm saying, but the narrative doesn't really support the notion that, wait, why am I analyzing Tusk right now? This isn't to say that a film isn't necessarily better if it attempts to use its body horror to explore a different theme. I mean, quality is always subjective, but I would at least consider it to be more personally interesting. This is where we finally talk about today's game, a pixelated body horror demo called They Speak from the Abyss. While it's still in its very early stages with only small clues towards the larger story and themes, I still find it very worthy of discussion. Both for its excellent atmosphere and visual and audio design, but also for the emotions and themes that I believe it's leaning towards and trying to convey. Basically, I wanted to introduce more people to this game and try and guess what I believe the game will actually end up being about. I don't think this game uses body horror just for the sake of it. No, my friends, I believe there is something else at play here. So, let's get into it. First, let me go over the game with you, its mechanics, the atmosphere, and especially its graphics. I expect that hardly anyone has played it yet, and since it's a demo, I won't feel bad for basically spoiling the entire experience. Consider this like the demo is just a big promo for the game. And if you do believe in this project after the video, then please donate to the creator using the link below. And if you're already interested in the game and don't want any spoilers, here's your warning now. So, what is They Speak from the Abyss? In its current form, you could essentially call it a PS1-esque walking simulator. You will find yourself, while walking around, collecting what are called hearts to unlock various doors that block you from progressing. Now, that's just the demo, and what we have been told about the game is that it's more of a classic RPG, and will feature a battle system. One of which I can't really say how fleshed out it will be, but we'll have to assume that, like the rest of the game, it will be heavily inspired by the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, particularly the first two mainline games, at least I would assume. The real draw of They Speak from the Abyss, however, is the atmosphere. A walking simulator sounds kinda boring on the surface since you're not really engaging with the world all that much, but then a movie is just a sitting simulator in that case. And we still enjoy films despite this, so I can assure that even as a demo, this game has a lot of value in experiencing it. And that's really the best word for it, an experience. Atmosphere is kind of a hard concept to nail down, since what even is atmosphere? It's not really just an aspect of media, but rather is an overarching term to envelop our general aesthetic sense we get from something. Sound design, visual design, dialogue, even gameplay all contribute towards atmosphere, to the point where maybe it's useless to discuss. But also, I don't really care. So let's talk about why this demo has such a strong atmosphere. Visual design and, surprisingly enough, audio design. Let's discuss the latter first. I say it was a surprise because this is an indie game in such early development, and I'm assuming it's made by a single person, or maybe a few. Audio design is one of the most overlooked aspects of any project, but also one of the most important. The difficulty arises, however, in the fact that audio design is also one of the hardest things to do for a small creator, or really any creator. Not even taking the soundtrack into account, sound effects themselves are a pain, requiring the creator to meticulously go over them again and again to make them sound right. And to make this transition sound natural, at least most of the time you want that effect. But even more than that, it's different from drawing something. You can't just create a sound effect out of thin air with software and imagination. The bass sound has to exist within reality. You can alter a sound to make it come across a different way, sure, but the foundation of that sound effect still has to sound good. Wow, I am using the word sound too many times. I personally would know how difficult audio design is as I attempted to master it and subsequently failed at that attempt for the filming and editing of my horror short film Squid Boy, which will be coming out soon, I promise. It's just one of the harder things to nail down, but the trick is to make the vibe and atmosphere fit the more amateurish audio design. You need to make it make sense, aesthetically and narratively. I accomplished this by creating a faux fantasy world built upon shiftily put together wooden legs, where things were purposely so obviously not real that even stock animal sounds sounded natural within that space. They Speak from the Abyss does something not dissimilar, although admittedly they do it much better than I did. The sounds in the game are grotesque, yet choppy and distorted. It's clear when the audio file begins and when it ends, and I say that and mean it as a compliment. It lends itself to an otherworldly feeling, as if we are truly in a different reality we can't even begin to understand. And the audio itself sounds great, offering up just enough in the jump scare department to always keep the player on their toes, while still offering emotional beats throughout the narrative. All in all, They Speak from the Abyss is some of the best audio design I've ever heard or seen, and I don't say that lightly. But of course, that's not all it has going for it, so now let's briefly talk about the visual design, because my god does it look great. Fantastic even. Alright, that was brief enough. I mean, come on. You've been looking at the game this entire time. I can say all the usual things like the sprite work is amazing, the general design of the world is inventive and great, but when it comes to visuals, I think these videos make it pretty self-explanatory most of the time, as you can see it all for yourself and just drink it all in. Let this immersive world wash over you and take you for an adventure. So instead of discussing the visuals in depth, let's take a closer look at what exactly the story is trying to tell us. I want you to imagine this scenario. You've just woken up. You're still blinking the sleepiness out of your eyes, and the thoughts that torment you haven't yet had a chance to enter your mind. Peaceful bliss. But then you check the time. 4 p.m. Damn it, I slept in again. You feel just a bit disgusted with yourself, but you brush it off. It's not like this is anything abnormal. Nothing out of the ordinary. You lay in bed browsing social media for the next couple hours, oblivious to the real world outside. Finally, you decide it's time to get up, and so you do. You do. You find yourself in the bathroom, staring at your reflection. What you see there, it disgusts you. Your body, your very flesh even, there's something inherently wrong with it. This isn't me, you think to yourself. You hate it. You want to throw up, but the words never come. You're left there, almost paralyzed, just staring, individually picking out the things you wish you could change about yourself. Nothing is good enough. You're not good enough. How can anyone love you in this form when you can't even love yourself? No, you think to yourself, I hate myself. I hate this body that encompasses my soul. I feel suffocated within it. But you're trapped. There's seemingly nothing you can do. This seems to be the general theme of the game, this feeling of body dysmorphia. There's an emphasis placed on flesh within the game, a very heavy emphasis even. This is translated beautifully through the general design of the game, with lines like, the forest is filled with a gross odor. The trees pulsate and writhe, calling up a feeling of intense body horror. But the first time flesh is explicitly mentioned with the double-headed demon, which says both, your flesh is precious, and then, your flesh is disgusting. This dichotomy, this struggle between one's own self-image, should be familiar to a lot of people. Sometimes you may feel secure within your body, even grateful for it, while other times you may feel absolutely disgusted by it. It's never usually a black and white issue, with the nuance of the situation seeping in through this dichotomy. There's a constant mentioning of a baptism, which, while we don't fully know what that means yet, seems to be hinted at the end of the demo, in the most telling part of the story thus far, when we encounter him. This is where the mentioning of flesh is cranked up to 1,000, maybe even 1,000,000. Doth has come to cleanse thy flesh of filth and perversion. This line to me seems like a reflection of the main character, how she seems to see herself and her body. Perverse, like something is inherently wrong with it as it currently is, and filthy, wanting to be cleansed. Or, perhaps, this is a reflection of how society sees her, while she is perfectly content within her own skin. A world that just doesn't quite understand her and wants to quote-unquote fix her even when there's nothing wrong. The further lines still leave this up to interpretation. Let your flesh be washed with glory. Let the Almighty consume your soul. No more shall thy suffer. This suffering can be real, yes, like we already discussed, but can also be simply perceived suffering, something that isn't real. This can be a society trying to correct her, believing itself to be just in doing so. Again, there is no solid answers here, but I think I'm leaning towards the latter, due to the ending of the demo, which we'll be getting into momentarily, and a few other things. Flesh baptism, flesh almighty. Such a line places an almost religious importance on the body, something that, honestly, kinda seems like overkill from this entity. As if the flesh is all that matters. Then we have emphasis placed in the mind with the line, purge thy mind, purge thy soul, representing a seeming melding of the mind and the body, or at least a perception of both. As if one could tell what's happening in the mind by what they're seeing from the body, as if it were that easy. I think you see what I'm getting at here. I think it's the latter of the two conclusions, that the world is wrongfully perceiving this person, telling them what they should think about themselves and who they should be. This is echoed by the two-headed demon as it makes assumptions and perceptions of a body that is not its own, wrongfully judging it. The final nail in the coffin for this interpretation for me, though, is the end of the demo, to which I'll read word for word. Vanessa, don't be afraid. No matter what happens, even if the entire world turns against you, I'll be here with you. Call my name, Sophia. I think it's pretty clear here. The world is seemingly turning against Vanessa, or at least has a reason that they deem worthy to do so. I'd connect this to how the world perceives her body, how they wrongfully wish to control it, with a forced baptism, which can then spawn a whole slew of wider interpretations, but ones that I'll leave up to your imagination. But no matter what, this person, Sophia, will be there with her, even if the entire world turns against her. And that, I believe, is a great message. Welcome to the end of the video. As always, I hope you're doing well, and I also hope you'll check out this game. I'm pretty sure a new demo was released that will expand on the game a lot, so make sure to check that out. Links, as always, will be in the description. As for me, well, I'd like to think this video signals the end of my little quote-unquote break, if you can really even call it that. I'll be trying to get more content out there, so please recommend any games, anime, or any other media that I can cover in a video. It can be literally anything. Mental health is, as always, kicking my ass, but I want to make this channel a priority. That's what I want. I have another video script done for a short, more out there kind of video, so I hope you'll enjoy that when it comes out eventually. And, as always, thank you for watching.